Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Pray First. How is everyone doing this beautiful Tuesday morning? It is Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. I'm going to wait for a minute, see my friends come populate in here so I can say hi to you guys. Remember, pray first. Pray first. You are here at the Pastor Doug Facebook page, and you're here live right now. If you're here live, go ahead and hashtag live. If you come and see us later, make sure you're hashtagging recorded. But Pray First is our conversation that we have Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. where we're talking with each other, encouraging each other, and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. And that's the principle of giving God our first. Good morning, Brenda Smith. Good morning, Dustin. Good morning, Sharon. Hello, Miss Casarino. How are you doing this morning? My name is Ann, and I get to be the host this morning. And I know we're looking for additional hosts, so you guys should let us know that you would like to be our Monday mystery host someday. Good morning, Sarah Taylor. Good morning, Corrine. How are you doing, Randall? Hey, Bonnie Mason. How are you? Good morning, Joanne. It is supposed to be a stinking hot day here in the Mid-South. So even though it's not too hot, I decided to stay inside this morning and hope to avoid some of the nature sounds that happen in our area between the goose and the neighborhood dogs and all this craziness. Good morning, Dustin. I think I already said that. Good morning, Neil. So today, Pray First is so funny for me because I never know what I'm going to talk about until sometimes the week before. But if you're with Crosspoint, oh wait, before I forget, make sure you're hashtagging live, hashtagging recorded. Please share this out to keep our analytics up and do the hearts and they're there. I look at you guys. See, even before I said it, the hearts and the thumbs up. Those are for our first time visitors so that you guys realize that we are excited that you're here and we're always first time once and then we just keep getting sucked back in and we just love what we get to do here by encouraging each other. Good morning, Travis. Good morning, Michelle Edge. Good morning, Kat. Good morning, Barbie Shook. I missed you this weekend. Okay, so what I was going back to. So for those of you who are there with Crosspoint, you know that our Go Out Sunday, this Sunday is going to be so fun. What we're doing is we're having a huge family fun day. And family fun day means that we're going to have everyone come in to our location. We're going to have water slides, all this kind of fun stuff for the youth. But also, we're doing an ice cream competition, homemade ice cream. So Pastor Doug and I were talking about that, and I'm just like, because I personally, how many of you guys have made homemade ice cream before? Let me know that, yes, you've done it, because I never have. I enjoy good ice cream, but I've never made ice cream. So he's talking about how you have to use salt for the ice cream to make the ice colder, and that doesn't make any sense to me, because I thought salt was used to melt the ice. So I decided, so when we were talking, the salt just kept rolling them out in my head, so I had to do some research. Neil, if you've made ice cream, why are you not making ice cream this weekend? You should come on Sunday and let me try your stuff. Good morning, Gail. Good morning, Corrine. See, everyone who's saying they're making ice cream, you got to come. If you are local and you know how to make ice cream, come compete. It's going to be a lot of fun because you never know what we're going to find. Okay, so anyways, back to my salt. So my head was just resonating with salt, trying to understand salt a little bit better. Good morning, Donna. Good morning, Stevie. Good morning, Deborah. So I did a little research. Good morning, Kathy. Here you go. For any of you who were as curious as me. So the reason why you ice your salt your roads is, it all is because of the freezing point depression of a solution. So when you add salt to a water mixture and you spray it on the streets, it helps prevent the icing, because when water is mixed with salt, the freezing temperature of the solution is lower than 30 degrees. So that means that salt impedes the ability of the water to form ice crystals. And then the same logic actually works, strange enough, if you think why you use salt for freezing ice cream. So because water freezes at 32 degrees, any temperature above 32 starts the melting process, right? So that's not good for ice cream because you get all that, crystallization and stuff. So what you do is if you add salt to it, the ice alone, ice alone on the outside is not enough to sufficiently cool the ice cream, but salt helps because it lowers the freezing, the melting point of the water. So, basically, adding salt to the ice that surrounds the ice cream base provides a temperature cold enough so the ice cream inside can thicken and freeze before the ice outside the base entirely melts. Now, I don't know if any of you guys were interested in that, but that was something that, when I think it was all the pastors were talking about it. And I'm like, I just don't understand it. So I had to research it. But of course, I am going to tie this into biblical stuff in a moment. But here's the thing. Do you know that salt is also used in your garden? It can kill poison ivy. It deters ants. It kills slugs. It can control worms. It can remove your rust. It also deodorizes stuff like your camping stuff. And you know, salt can exfoliate your skin. If you make it with a paste, it stops itchiness. Some people actually use it to whiten your teeth because the natural exfoliants, it will like scrub your teeth. And we know that it cleans and it sanitizes. So that all to be said, when I'm talking about salt, good morning, Mel. I'm not sure what you want me to repeat, Travis, so you might have to say that one more time. But so talking about salt, of course, that resonates with what Jesus said, right? So we're going to run real quick to Matthew 5:13. In Matthew 5:13, I should have grabbed my glasses, says, "You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet." You know, so we have to start asking ourselves, so are we worth our salt? Are we still effective and efficient? Are we, you know, and back in the olden times, sometimes they said that they paid their soldiers in salt because it was such a commodity and it was so important. But I want to actually look at Luke 14 when I was looking up what Jesus said about salt. Matthew and Luke both have the same thing where Jesus is talking. This is the Beatitudes where Jesus is talking. But I liked Luke 14:24, and I kind of just wanted to concentrate on it a little bit more. And that's this. It says, salt is good. This is very similar to Matthew. Salt is good, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is of no use either for the soil or for the manure pile. It is thrown away. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So when I read that, I was thinking, okay, so Jesus is sharing this in his time. What does that mean? You know that he was excellent. Well, he always used metaphors that was relevant to the time that he was in to help people understand things, to make it more relevant for them so they can apply it. So I went into a little bit more, and I think a lot of us know the importance of salt for the soil, right? I mean, in a huge concentration, like I said earlier, salt will actually kill weeds, so it's not good for the soil. But if you mix it in, salt is a very, very important component of fertilizer. That's why when Jesus was saying that it's good for the soil, because you mix it in and it helps plants to grow. There's so many ways we can take that, right, as disciples, as far as needing salt to help plants grow. But then I got stuck on, or for the new manure pile. Like, why on earth would salt be good for a manure pile? Does anyone know? Because I didn't. So I did some research on that. So back in Jesus's time, what they would do is they would have, you know, they're kind of they're more a desert area, right? So, and they didn't have tons of wood and stuff always to be burning at their leisure. But what they did have plentiful of was manure. So animals' droppings would be dropped out there, and they would take them and they would dry them out. And once they would dry them out, they'd take this dried animal manure and they would sprinkle it with salt and add it to the fire. Because what they learned, if they took a little bit of salt, if they took salt and they mixed it with manure, then a chemical reaction would occur. This blew my mind. And what happens is salt mixed with manure, the chemical reaction that would occur would make the fire burn hotter and burn longer. Now, when the salt making things burn hotter and longer, what would eventually happen though is that would cause the salt to break down and make it no longer salty. I always wonder that too. Like, how can you make salt no longer salty? Well, it's by breaking it down. And when you did that, when you used it for the manure pile, then it was no longer, once it was broken down, it was no longer good to be used for manure pile. So that made me think of, so as Christians, as disciples, this is one analogy that we can use, is that sometimes we actually have to get mixed with the manure of the world in order to cause God's word to burn hotter and brighter for longer. Let me say that again. So we're salt, right? Jesus tells us to be salt of the earth. That means that we actually have to go into the earth. And sometimes that means we have to go into the caca. Because it's order for us to be there, in order for us to make a difference. If you're not actually in the world and using salt as Jesus told us to be the salt, then we're not actually going to be effective. Because that's the crazy thing with salt. Do you know salt affects its environment simply by being what it is? That's what salt does. It is what it is. This was making me resonate when I was thinking about Pastor Doug's message this last weekend. And we had a gazillion tech issues, but it was finally uploaded. So it's in the drive, it's in our app, so please go back and watch it. But one of the things is that sometimes we have a tendency as we go into the world that we're not wanting to be effective in the world. And some of it is because we don't want to offend people. So I get that. I do get that. But I think there's more, I think it's more to it. And that's why I loved the way that Pastor Doug preached. You cannot dilute the truth as you're going in to love on people, because by keeping them from being any of the conviction that the word brings, we're actually hurting them. We're not preserving them, we're hurting them. And there's something else with salt that I was thinking of. Like my brain was all salt all night long. Here's another thing that's with salt. Okay, those of you who are cooks, like I love to cook. And so if you cook and you have salt, what if you took salt and you put it just in one corner of the ingredient and you didn't spread it out? It would ruin the dish, right? If you took a bite of that area, it would ruin it. So what do you do with salt? You have to sprinkle it on. So I want you to take that analogy out, and I want you to think about that for a minute. If for some reason, us being salt, all we did was stay in our church. So if you go to church, that's where the group of salt is, right? How good is that salt? It's not, right? Because you're just concentrating in one area. Concentrated salt is gross. It just is. Remember, if something is too salty, do you want it? No. So what do you have to do? You have to disperse the salt out. When you're cooking with it, you disperse it. That's why that's why we have to go out. That's why we can't just stay within the church. It's so easy to want to stay within the church and not go sprinkle your salt. Why? I think it ties back to what I was just saying. Because sometimes we're afraid. Sometimes we're afraid to go out and make that difference. Because we don't want to be judged. We don't want to be told, well, you guys are the judgy folk. Or you guys are judging me. You don't love me. You don't do this. Can I just tell you, do you know, I'm not trying to mind blow you here, but do you know you can love people that you don't agree with? You can love people that you don't agree with. You don't have to agree. You can agree to disagree as much as you want, but you cannot agree to not love that person. So as salt, we have to go out there. We have to sprinkle ourselves. We have to put ourselves out there, not be afraid. I love that Pastor Doug is teaching on Gideon right now and the importance of thriving. Thriving is getting out of that cave. And sometimes, okay, let's pretend that cave is the church and a different dynamics. Like switch your dynamics in your brain for a minute. What if we're so afraid of being in the outside world, all we're doing is staying in a church, that the four walls of a church is providing us that safety that we want because we're afraid to go out? That is not what we're supposed to do. You have to get out. You have to get out, and you've got to love others. You've got to be able to tell them about Jesus. You have to be able to, yes, you have to be able to mix with the world, but not of the world. Salt is an enhancer. Salt is not like pepper. So if you're a cook, when you add salt, it's because you're supposed to enhance the flavor of foods that you're working with. But if you add, people always say salt and pepper, salt and pepper. If you add pepper to it, pepper's a spice. It changes the flavor, whereas salt enhances the flavor. So we're here to make sure that we're enhancing the flavor of the world around us. I think I just want to leave you with this. I personally do not watch Chosen. I haven't had the time to watch Chosen, the series Chosen. How many of you guys have watched the series Chosen? Because I know it's fantastic. But one of the things I happened to catch when I was like, let me look about all this information on salt. One of the things that, so when Jesus is explaining to Matthew, because Matthew said, why did you even use the analogy of the metaphor of salt? So Jesus says this in The Chosen, okay? This is from The Chosen. He says that salt preserves and it slows decay. So that means that as disciples, we're supposed to be able to hold back the evil in the world. We're supposed to be able to be out there and help to not let the evil destroy the world that we're in. Salt also enhances the flavor. I know I'm touched on this many times already when I'm just speaking with you. That means it's supposed to renew the world. Jesus says in The Chosen, it's supposed to renew the world. It's supposed to help the world. It's supposed to be part of the redemption of the world. That's what salt does. And the last thing that Jesus says when he's talking to Matthew about the metaphor, why we use salt, why he says that we are the salt of the world, is because salt, when it's mixed with honey and it's rubbed on the skin, it actually helps for remedies. So it helps for the healing and not the destruction of the world. How many of us know people out there right now who are hurting that we could be used to rub with honey, with something sweet, and to love on them, to let them know that Jesus, and point them always toward Jesus, right? That's what we're supposed to do as disciples. We follow him so closely that people can see his light, because we're also salt and light of the world, right? So the light of Jesus is supposed to flow through us, so they can see him. And all things we're supposed to show to him. Look at the world around us right now. The sin and it's not like, I'm not saying that sin has changed or anything, but I think what the important thing is that because of technology, we're more aware of what sin is out there. And sin is so much, in some ways, it's so much easier to do. Like, think about pornography is one example. Do you know that if you look at pornography, and I'm talking specifically on online pornography only, online pornography, if you total up Google, Apple, Amazon, Netflix combined, all the money that people spend on those big things, I'm just thinking the big things out there right now. Do you know that online porn makes more money than that? Why? Because it's easy and attainable to get to. So as salt, let's try and curb that. Let's try and point people to the light, to help them, as Jesus says in The Chosen, to try and preserve and slow decay, to help people by holding back the evil of the world. Let's help enhance the flavor of the world. Let's renew it. Let's be part of the redemption of the world. And let's heal people in the world by showing them Jesus. It's so... Always be aware, because by the way, the end part of when I was reading Luke 14, it says, he who has ears to hear, let them hear. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. As disciples, we can hear these words I'm saying, and it can make sense to us. We can say, oh, that's great, I understand. But when you're not a disciple, then you don't have ears to hear what they're saying, because you don't have the Holy Spirit inside you guiding you with that truth. We need to love those that do not love Jesus. We need to give them applicable truths so they can start to see the truth. But the only way we can do that is if we are able to love them. We have to love them. We can't pour out so much salt on them that it kills them. We got to love them where they're at, show them the truth so they want to live a life. We got to live a life that's so full of joy. We have to be so much, our life has to show that we are thriving so people can look at us and say, wow, even in the midst of their pain, they show love. Even in the midst of their pain, you can see joy. You know, sometimes it's so hard when you go through trials because you just want to feel defeated and give up, right? You just want to throw in the towel. You want to say, I don't understand any of this. I don't care about any of this anymore. It's so easy to just shut down. But trials, yes, we had to persevere through them. But anytime and this is for me, anytime I'm through a trial and I look back, there's so much I learned in the trial itself. You know, sometimes trials are what's going to help you to realize who your true friends are, who will stick with you through thick and thin, that your feelings can be hurt. They can do, but it doesn't matter. They're still there. You can be in the midst of it's either you're in the midst of a bad situation that you're causing yourself or someone caused for you. And yet those true friends are going to be with you through there, because through trials will help us because it enhances us. It helps us to be who we are. And we know that we can't thrive until we go through these trials. I know this seemed a little bit random towards the end, but my mind is just resonating on the importance of, as disciples, how we have to love others. And as we're loving others, we have to show them what it means to thrive, to be able to go through, to be transparent enough to say, I've grown through this. I'm vulnerable. I'm willing to be vulnerable enough with you to let you know that this has hurt me, but this is where I am. I think that's the only way for people to understand what it means to thrive, for them to understand who God God created them to be. And as he created them, he is with us at all times. At all times. He never leaves us. And friends, having him with us at all times is what helps us to be able to to battle the spiritual battles that are all around it. There's spiritual battles always around us. We have to have ears to hear the truth. We have to have eyes to be able to see the truth. Okay, I think I'm going to end on that. Yes. All right, friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. I personally can use some prayers right now because I'm feeling some spiritual battles. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy couple weeks here. But also, at the same time, when you're feeling those spiritual battles, maybe I'm a little bit crazy, or maybe it's just because I've been working with Pastor Doug as much as I have. It kind of excites me. I put those in air quotes because I know that means that something big is coming. So I just lean into his word. I just know that he's got me, and that whatever this is, because he's a good God, all things will work out for him. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you so much for all that you're doing in our lives. I thank you for giving us opportunities, Lord, where we can talk with each other, encourage each other, Lord, and remind people of your word and the truth that's in your word, Lord. That little things like salt that's available everywhere with so many uses. Lord, help us to resonate on the word salt. Help us to look at everything that's salty or everywhere that uses salt in our lives and around us, and help us to realize that Jesus asked us to be salt. Help us to use that word, that simple little verse, that we're to be salt, and help us to learn through your eyes what that means to touch people that you love, which is everyone, every day. It's in your precious name that I pray. Amen. All right, friends, you guys have a happy Tuesday. I will see you guys back here next week. I think I will. I think next Tuesday, 4th of July? I'm not sure if I'll be back here next Tuesday, but Lord, thank you all for them. Have a fantastic, fantastic day. Bye, friends.